Ryan's face went white as the Admiral's words hit him. My name is Christopher Sullivan. I'm 54 years old, and I'd just been fired on the day we were supposed to sign a $420 million Navy contract. The elevator descended while my phone buzzed. Admiral Timothy Walsh's name flashed on the screen. I adjusted my father's old Timex, a habit from my Navy days, and answered, "Chris, where are you?" My procurement team's been waiting in the lobby for 30 minutes. We're ready to make this happen. There's been a development, Admiral, I said, using the diplomatic language that came naturally after 10 years in the Navy and 20 years in defense contracting. My authorization has been revoked, effective immediately. Silence. Then, what the hell are you talking about? Revoked on signing day. That's impossible. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. I could see Admiral Walsh standing with his team, phone to his ear, his free hand cutting through the air in confusion. Behind him, Ryan O'Connor had positioned himself near the reception desk, probably expecting to be in the victory photos. No development error, Admiral. Just corporate politics. I suggest you interface directly with the company's new point of contact. I walked out carrying my box of personal items. Walsh spotted me immediately, and his expression shifted from confusion to alarm. He ended the call and approached me. Chris. He extended his hand like we were still shipmates. My team's ready to sign this contract. I took a breath, aware that Ryan was monitoring our conversation from across the lobby. Permission denied, sir. They just terminated my clearance. Walsh's face hardened as he turned toward Ryan, who was now approaching us with that swagger he'd perfected at Stanford Business School. You did what? The look on Ryan's face shifted from satisfied to confused as the Admiral's words registered. Behind him, the entire Navy procurement team stared in disbelief. I was just implementing company policy, Ryan said, his voice losing some of its authority. Christopher refused to install mandatory employee monitoring protocols. That's clear insubordination. Walsh's expression went dark. You fired the chief architect of a $420 million Navy contract because he wouldn't install surveillance software on classified systems. Patrick O'Connor appeared then, rushing from the elevator with several board members behind him. Admiral Walsh, I'm sure we can resolve this. Chris is valuable to us. This is clearly a miscommunication. But Walsh had already turned away, speaking quietly to his team. I caught fragments. Integrity concerns if this is how they treat their senior people, security implications. I stood there watching 20 years of relationship building dissolve in real time. The encryption systems I'd designed, the trust I'd built with Navy procurement, the reputation that had taken decades to establish. Patrick approached me, lowering his voice. Chris, let's discuss this privately. Ryan is new to leadership. He made an error in judgment. We can fix this. No fix available. I replied loud enough for everyone to hear. Your son made an executive decision. You backed it with your silence. I accept the termination. Walsh turned back to us. Our contract was specifically with Christopher Sullivan. He designed the core security architecture. He's the only one who understands both our technical requirements and operational needs. He shook his head. Without him, we're not comfortable proceeding. You can't just walk away, Patrick protested. The contracts are drafted. The press announcement is scheduled. Actually, we can, Walsh said. Section 15, subsection 6 of your own proposal includes a key personnel clause. Christopher Sullivan is specifically named. If he leaves the company before contract execution for any reason other than medical issues, we have the right to withdraw without penalty. I had insisted on that clause myself. Standard protection for critical personnel. Now it was the kill switch that would sink the entire deal. Chris wrote that clause. One of our lawyers whispered to Patrick. He's the only one who flagged its significance during contract review. Walsh extended his hand to me. Chris, when you decide on your next venture, call me. Engineers with your integrity are rare in this business. With that, he and his team walked out, leaving silence behind them. I nodded once to my former colleagues, then headed for the exit, ignoring Patrick's calls for me to come back. Outside, the San Diego morning air felt different, cleaner somehow. Despite the weight of what had just happened, no job, no immediate prospects. Watching my greatest professional achievement collapse, I felt something unexpected. Relief. My phone started buzzing continuously as I walked to the parking garage. I powered it down without checking the messages. Whatever crisis was building back at Titan Defense wasn't mine to solve anymore. At home, I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, Maker's Mark, not the expensive stuff, and sat on my deck watching the sailboats in the harbor. When was the last time I'd been home before dark? When had I last actually noticed the weather? That evening, market alerts popped up on my tablet. Titan defense stock had dropped 38% on rumors the Navy contract had failed. By morning, it would fall another 16%, reaching a total decline of 54%. Thousands of jobs were suddenly at risk. The company I'd worked so hard to build was now in crisis mode. Part of me felt responsible. Those were good people who would suffer. But a stronger part recognized that I hadn't sunk the ship. Their leadership had, for the next week, I ignored calls and emails. Colleagues, reporters, recruiters, everyone wanted to know what had happened and what I planned to do next. I wasn't ready to process that information yet. Instead, I caught up on sleep. I cooked actual meals instead of eating delivery at my desk. I called my brother Michael in Phoenix, had long conversations with friends I'd barely contacted in 3 years. I haven't heard you this relaxed in years, Michael said during one of our calls. Getting fired might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Maybe, I admitted, but I still can't process how it ended. 20 years, Michael. 20 years building systems and relationships, and they let some kid with an MBA destroy it all in one morning. And what did they build for you? He asked. You gave them everything. The first time Ryan wanted to flex his authority, they let him delete you from the system. He wasn't wrong. 2 weeks later, Patrick finally got through to me. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won. Chris, he sounded like he'd been running on backup power for days. The board wants to meet. The situation here is, it's worse than we projected. I'm listening. We need your help. To fix this, to bring Walsh back to the table, to save the company. The same company that terminated me for refusing to install surveillance software. His sigh carried the weight of system failure. That was a catastrophic error. Ryan has been reassigned. I've been formally reprimanded by the board. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch. Please, Chris. Thousands of jobs are at risk. People who worked with you, people who respect you, people who sat quietly while I was publicly terminated, I thought. But I kept that observation to myself. What's your offer? Come to the board meeting tomorrow. Name your terms. I considered ending the call, but something in me, the part that had spent 20 years trying to keep this company secure, couldn't quite shut down completely. I'll consider it, I said. Ending the call. That night, I couldn't sleep. What did I actually want? Reinstatement? Public acknowledgement? Revenge? Yes, a voice in my head confirmed, all of the above. By morning, I had my requirements list ready. I called Patrick back. I'll meet with the board today, not tomorrow. And I'm coming with non-negotiable terms. 4 hours later, I walked into the boardroom wearing the same outfit I'd been fired in. Khakis, button-down shirt, and my father's Timex. The message wasn't subtle, but subtlety hadn't protected my career before. The board members stood when I entered. Their expressions ranged from desperate hope to guilty discomfort. Patrick looked like he'd been running on minimal sleep for days. Ryan was conspicuously absent. Thank you for coming, Chris. The chairman said, we appreciate your willingness to discuss the situation. Let's skip the pleasantries, I replied, taking a seat. Since I left, your stock has dropped 54%. 4 major clients have initiated contract reviews. The business press is running daily speculation about Chapter 11 filing timelines. Grim nods around the table. You've lost the Walsh contract, which was your primary revenue stream for the next 4 years. Even if I could convince the admiral to reconsider, and that's a significant if, the terms would be substantially worse. We understand that, Patrick said, but we have to try. Why should I help you? I asked. You all sat in silence while your son fired me over an ethical stance. None of you, I looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes, spoke up for me or the work I'd done. Uncomfortable shifting in chairs, some cleared throats. We made a critical error, the chairman admitted. What would it take for you to return? I opened my briefcase and withdrew a folder. These terms are non-negotiable. I placed it in front of him, watching as he opened it and scanned the contents. The chairman's eyebrows rose as he read. He passed it to Patrick, whose face went pale. This is extensive, Patrick said. Yes, full reinstatement at $485,000 annually, board membership, complete authority over technical strategy, and substantial equity participation. Also, this clause about intellectual property, any new technology I develop while employed here remains 70% my personal property. The company may claim 30% ownership, but I retain controlling interest and licensing rights. That's highly unusual. One board member objected. So is firing your senior VP over security ethics on the day of a $420 million contract signing, I replied. Consider it insurance against future management failures. They exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them. Finally, the chairman spoke. And if we accept these terms, you'll attempt to restore the Walsh contract. I'll attempt recovery. I can't guarantee success. Another round of looks. Then the chairman pushed the contract back to me, now bearing his signature. Approved one by one, the other board members signed. Patrick was last, his pen hovering briefly before he added his name. When can you start? The chairman asked. System restart begins now, I said, standing. I'll be in my office within the hour. I suggest you all prepare for some very demanding months. As I turned to leave, Patrick called after me. What about Ryan? I paused at the door. What about him? He's still with the company, junior position in business development. Will that be a problem? I smiled. Not for me. That night, I called Admiral Walsh. The conversation was long and difficult. As I'd predicted, he was reluctant to re-engage. Your company showed its true priorities, Chris. Why would I trust them again? You wouldn't be trusting them, I replied. You'd be trusting me. And I now have the authority to guarantee what I promise. After 2 hours, he agreed to consider a revised proposal with significantly less favorable terms for Titan defense, but better security guarantees. The new contract value would be $285 million over 4 years instead of the original $420 million. But it was something. Over the next few weeks, I worked systematically to repair what could be salvaged. Several departments required restructuring. Some positions were eliminated, none of them people who had been in that boardroom when I was terminated. I occasionally saw Ryan in the hallways. He always found somewhere else to look. I never approached him or mentioned his name in meetings. His presence in the system was irrelevant to my operations. But an idea had begun forming in my mind from my very first day back. That unusual clause in my contract, the one giving me majority ownership of new intellectual property, hadn't been random. I had a plan. One that would require patience and strategic development. It began with a conversation with Rebecca Thompson, our head of product development. I need a side project, I told her over coffee one morning. Something small, experimental. Can your team provide support? Rebecca, pleased that I'd selected her for special assignment, agreed immediately. What kind of project? I've been analyzing cybersecurity needs, specifically small business protection. Most existing solutions are either too complex or too invasive. She looked surprised. That's outside our current market segment. Exactly, I agreed. But it's a sector with significant unmet demand, and my contract allows for exploration of new verticals. Within days, Rebecca had assembled a small team. We worked evenings and weekends conducting market research, developing prototypes, testing security frameworks. I was particularly interested in privacy-first architecture, comprehensive protection systems that didn't require invasive data collection. Why not just make them enterprise level from the start? One team member asked. Because different organizations have different privacy priorities, I explained. Small businesses need enterprise-grade security without enterprise-level surveillance. They want protection, not monitoring. The team embraced the challenge enthusiastically. They saw it as creative problem-solving distinct from their regular assignments, an innovative project with an experienced leader who understood both the technical requirements and market dynamics. Meanwhile, I continued rebuilding client relationships and slowly, methodically reconstructing a viable partnership with Admiral Walsh's procurement office. The company remained vulnerable, but immediate bankruptcy risk had been eliminated. Stock prices had stabilized, though still well below pre-crisis levels. Patrick watched my work with a mixture of gratitude and unease. He knew I'd preserved his position for now, but sensed that I wasn't quite the same engineer who had left that day with a cardboard box. You've changed, he said one evening as we reviewed quarterly projections. Have I? You're more, calculating somehow, more strategic. I adjusted my watch. Getting terminated in front of 20 silent colleagues tends to optimize one's operational parameters. He winced. I've apologized for that multiple times. Yes, you have, and I've accepted your apology. But acceptance doesn't equal system restore to previous settings. As weeks turned to months, our cybersecurity project evolved from concept to functional prototype. We partnered with a small manufacturing facility in Chula Vista to produce limited beta versions funded through my personal investment with proper compensation to company resources as outlined in my contract. The designs were elegant, effective, and quietly revolutionary. Each system incorporated our core innovation: comprehensive protection without invasive monitoring, security that respected user privacy while maintaining complete threat detection. I began running our prototypes in live environments, simple implementations at first, basic firewall systems, encrypted communication tools. No one commented directly, but I noticed increased interest from other departments. Then came the breakthrough systems. Beautifully architected, completely professional, and secretly revolutionary. Full enterprise security with zero user surveillance. 1 week protecting against standard threats, the next blocking advanced persistent attacks, always maintaining privacy. The technology was working better than I'd hoped. Colleagues began asking about our security upgrades. Instead of explaining directly, I invited them to participate in user testing, collecting their feedback on small business cybersecurity challenges. The systems are so intrusive, one department head complained during a coffee break. My last company's basic protection was enough. Here, we need these comprehensive monitoring systems. It's excessive. Others agreed. What if, I suggested, you had protection that could scale to different threat environments without compromising privacy? Their enthusiasm confirmed what I already suspected. We had identified a genuine market gap that nobody else was addressing effectively. 6 months after my return, our small cybersecurity line, which I had named Naval Edge Security, was ready for limited launch. We had a functional website, a manufacturing partner ready for orders, and a growing list of interested clients who'd heard about our beta testing through word of mouth. The day before our official launch, I called a company-wide meeting. Everyone attended, curious about the unusual assembly. These meetings were rare at Titan Defense. As I walked to the front of the conference room, I noted with satisfaction that Ryan was present, sitting in the back row, trying to blend into the background. He'd learned to keep his head down over the past months. Thank you all for coming. I began. Today marks an important milestone for our company. We've stabilized our core business, restored key client relationships, and are now ready to announce something new. Patrick, sitting in the front row, looked confused. This wasn't on his agenda. He'd been kept deliberately in the dark about the timing. For the past 6 months, a specialized team has been developing an innovative project, one that represents not just a new product line, but a new direction for our company's future. I clicked to display the first slide. Naval Edge Security's logo, clean, professional, with subtle nautical elements that referenced both my Navy background and San Diego's maritime culture. I'm proud to introduce Naval Edge Security, cybersecurity solutions designed to protect without invading, to secure without surveilling. Murmurs swept through the room as I clicked to the next slide showing system architecture diagrams. The technical staff leaned forward, immediately recognizing the sophistication of what they were seeing. These aren't just security systems, I continued. They're solutions to real problems. Every component in this platform addresses a specific challenge small and medium businesses face daily. I walked toward the center of the room, gesturing toward the technical specifications on screen. Take this firewall system we're launching tomorrow. At first glance, it looks like standard network protection, but it features proprietary privacy-first architecture that, with simple configuration changes, can scale from basic small office protection to enterprise-level threat detection while maintaining zero user surveillance. I demonstrated the system's capabilities, showing how it could adapt to different threat levels while maintaining complete privacy protection. The technical demonstrations were impressive, and I could see recognition dawning on faces throughout the room. No more choosing between security and privacy. No more surveillance-based protection systems. Patrick shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Several board members exchanged glances. In the back, Ryan stared with wide eyes, recognition processing across his face. He was beginning to understand what he was witnessing. You might be wondering why a defense contractor is launching cybersecurity solutions. The answer is simple. We identified a market need and created an innovative solution. Exactly what we do with our core business. I advanced to the next slide showing projected revenue figures that made several executives sit straighter in their chairs. The numbers were substantial. potentially game-changing for a company still recovering from near bankruptcy. Our market research indicates significant demand for privacy-first cybersecurity. We've secured manufacturing partnerships, built distribution channels, and created a marketing strategy that emphasizes authentic problem-solving rather than fear-based selling. I paused, meeting Ryan's eyes across the room. He couldn't look away this time. Every Naval Edge system includes documentation explaining its development philosophy. How one arbitrary decision prioritizing surveillance over security nearly destroyed a successful company and derailed a $420 million contract. The room went completely silent. No one looked at Ryan, but everyone understood the reference. The story of my firing and the lost contract had become company legend. That incident revealed something important. When technical competence is subordinated to political considerations, everyone loses. Naval Edge offers a practical solution to that problem. I clicked to the final slide showing our launch date tomorrow. Thanks to my employment contract, which grants me controlling interest in new intellectual property development. Naval Edge will operate as an independent entity with 30% ownership by Titan Defense. Patrick stood up abruptly. Chris, this is the first I'm hearing about launching tomorrow. The board should review timing and strategy. The board approved my contract, which gives me autonomy over intellectual property development. I replied smoothly. The timing is optimized for current market conditions, but I welcome your support. I turned back to the audience. This isn't just about cybersecurity. It's about recognizing that true technical excellence comes from competence, innovation, and integrity, not from surveillance capabilities or political positioning. With that, I thanked everyone and ended the meeting, ignoring the buzz of conversation that erupted. As people filed out discussing what they'd just witnessed, I noticed Ryan remained seated, staring at the now blank screen. I walked past him without acknowledgement. My message had been transmitted and received. The next phase was about to begin. The launch exceeded all projections. Press coverage focused on our innovative architecture, but also highlighted our origin story. Fired for ethics. How one VP turned termination into innovation, read one headline in TechCrunch. Orders flowed immediately, overwhelming our initial production capacity. Small businesses across multiple industries responded to both our technical solutions and the principles behind them. The story resonated experienced professionals who understood the value of integrity over politics. 2 weeks after launch, our servers crashed from traffic when Admiral Walsh gave an interview to Defense News mentioning Naval Edge. I use their systems now, he told the reporter. Best security architecture I've encountered in 20 years of procurement. And I appreciate supporting a company that values integrity over surveillance. The interview went viral in defense circles. Orders doubled, then tripled. We had to bring on additional manufacturing partners just to keep up with demand. Patrick called me to his office the day after the interview published. This is bigger than we anticipated, he said, gesturing to the sales reports scattered across his desk. Yes, I agreed. The board is concerned about focus. They worry Naval Edge is diverting your attention from our core business. Our core business is stabilized. The Walsh contract is progressing on schedule. My performance metrics remain exemplary, he sighed. That's not the real concern. The story behind Naval Edge. It's making Ryan look incompetent. It's affecting company morale. The story is accurate. Sometimes accuracy can be destructive to team cohesion. I adjusted my watch considering his words. What I want, I said finally, is for decisions to have consequences. Real ones. When Ryan fired me, he believed there would be no meaningful consequence for him. You remained silent, believing the same. The board took no action because they assumed corporate hierarchy would protect everyone except me. I stood up. Naval Edge isn't about destruction. It's about construction. Taking something negative and creating value from it. That's a lesson worth teaching. I left him processing my words. 3 months after launch, Naval Edge had become a phenomenon in the cybersecurity industry. We expanded into enterprise solutions, government contracts, and specialized privacy tools. Each product maintained our core philosophy: protection without surveillance, security with integrity. Our financial results were undeniable. Naval Edge was generating revenue equivalent to 48% of Titan Defense's core business in just 1 quarter. The 30% ownership stake had become the company's most valuable asset. Meanwhile, The renegotiated contract with Admiral Walsh's office, finally executed at $285 million over 4 years, less than the original deal, but sufficient to ensure survival and modest growth. On the 1-year anniversary of my firing and return, I called another company meeting. The atmosphere was entirely different this time. Anticipation rather than confusion. Word had gotten around that something significant was coming. I took the stage wearing our newest system, a comprehensive security platform with brilliant engineering that could transition from small office protection to enterprise defense with simple configuration changes. 1 year ago, I was fired from this company for refusing to compromise security ethics. Today, I want to discuss growth, not just in revenue, but in understanding. I gestured toward the financial charts displaying Naval Edge's remarkable trajectory. Our cybersecurity platform began as a response to misplaced priorities. It has become something more, a demonstration that technical integrity and business success can coexist. Patrick watched from the front row, expression unreadable. The board members looked more relaxed than they had in months. Financial success had that effect. Today, I'm announcing 2 developments. First, Naval Edge will incorporate as an independent company effective next month. Titan Defense will retain its 30% ownership stake, providing substantial ongoing revenue without operational responsibility. Applause broke out. The financial benefits were obvious to everyone. Steady income without the management overhead. Second, I continued when the room quieted. I've established a foundation funded by Naval Edge profits. The Veteran Tech Leaders Initiative will provide grants and mentorship to experienced engineers facing workplace discrimination. I paused, finding Ryan in the audience. He no longer hid in the back, but sat in the middle rows, diminished but present. Over the past year, he'd learned to listen more and speak less. I've been asked many times if Naval Edge was developed for revenge. The answer is more complex than yes or no. It was developed because someone tried to reduce my professional worth to political compliance, and I refused to accept that evaluation. I walked to the edge of the platform. The foundation will include a unique opportunity, a fellowship program for individuals who've made significant professional errors and demonstrated genuine growth afterward. The first fellowship cycle is now open for applications. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. I saw him straighten in his chair. Mistakes can define us or transform us. The choice belongs to each of us. After the meeting, Ryan approached me for the first time since that day a year ago. The fellowship program, he said quietly. Is it legitimate? Everything I develop is functional, I replied. He nodded, swallowing visibly. Would I be qualified to apply? I studied him. The arrogance that had radiated from him a year ago had been systematically corrected over 12 months in a junior role, watching the consequences of his actions compile into public failure and company legend. The application process is rigorous, I said. It requires comprehensive self-assessment and growth documentation. No special access privileges. I understand, he said. I need to run a different program, be a different version of myself. I handed him my business card. Application details are on the Foundation website. Submission deadline is in 2 weeks. 2 months later, Naval Edge's independence became official. I remained connected to Titan Defense as a board member and strategic consultant, but my primary focus shifted to building the cybersecurity platform and foundation. Ryan did apply for the fellowship. His application wasn't the strongest or the weakest. The selection committee, which I deliberately excluded myself from, ultimately awarded him an alternative position. Not a full fellowship, but acknowledgement of potential for growth. When he received the notification, he sent me a single message. Thank you for the opportunity to be more than my worst decision. I didn't reply, but I archived the message. Titan Defense never fully recovered its former market position, but stabilized as a smaller, more focused entity. Patrick eventually stepped down, acknowledging that new leadership was needed for the next phase. As for me, Naval Edge grew beyond anything I had initially projected. What began as a response to termination evolved into an enterprise that empowered thousands of businesses to maintain security without sacrificing privacy or principles. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in Ryan's demotion or the company's struggle. It was in transforming a moment designed to diminish me into a movement that elevated others. Sometimes the most powerful response to someone who tries to delete you from the system is to build a better system entirely. And that system, I discovered, could either exclude or include, depending on how you architect it. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with my story. I'd appreciate knowing what resonated most with you. The moment of being fired, the return with new terms, or the development of something meaningful from that experience. Your feedback helps me understand what matters to you, and I read every response. If this story connected with you in any way, please let me know so we can stay connected. There are more stories to share, and I'd be honored to have you along for the process. In business and life, your response to injustice defines you more than the injustice itself. You can either become bitter or become better, but you can't become both. The most devastating revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so successful that they have to watch you win, while knowing they caused their own downfall. True power lies not in destroying those who wronged you, but in building something so successful that your integrity becomes their standard for measurement. When someone tries to erase your value from their system, the ultimate victory is creating a new system where your principles become the foundation that others aspire to reach.